after all that hullabaloo earlier. So yeah, I'm happy if you've just joined me or joined us. Well, you would have just joined us because we've just literally hit the record button. So you couldn't have joined any earlier. Thank God you didn't. You would have had to sit through half an hour of technical issues. Anyway, I'm here with Susanna Silver. Can you pronounce that?
Silverhøj.
Silverhøj. I can never get that. Silverhøj. Silverhøj? Silverhøj.
Well, you know,
I actually,
if I would say it in Danish, it would be Silverhøj.
all right, okay. I did have someone else that kept mispronouncing their name, and they were like a school teacher, you know, constantly correcting me on it. So I just wanted to make sure you're okay with it.
Yeah.
Anyway,
You know, I'm used to it. You know, if I'm stupid enough to have that kind of letter in my last name, you know, it's just like it's doomed to fail.
I like it. It's just being able to pronounce it, you know, do it justice.
Yeah.
I like it. Yeah.
Well, I really
Anyway.
don't spend energy on stuff. So, you know, I know you know, you have a good intention. That's all.
Yeah, I know. Like, I obviously get used to Zenith, and all of my American friends will Zenith. So I'm like, yeah, whatever. Call me whatever you want. Don't call me anything if you want.
It.
Anyway, so obviously I am Zenith, whatever. And this is the podcast of the Spirit Channel, and I am with the lovely Susanna. So glad to have you on, Susanna. We have tried to make this work so many times. But anyway, for anyone who doesn't know, Susanna is a transformational author of 2 books, and she's co-authored another 5. She's also the co-host of the podcast Live the Impossible Show with husband Oliver. She has many websites, which I had to unravel and try to explore. Oh my God, how much media is this lady involved in? And she's also the co-creator of the website holyland.me, which is a virtual community for leaders who want to be free. That's correct. And I've actually seen this somewhere before in someone else's thing, but she's also an unfuckable with blogger, which sounds really interesting, doesn't it? I want to be an unfuckable with blogger. I'm just an ordinary blogger. She runs virtual communities, she runs boot camps with tailored programs for individual. She's an intuitive energy seer. She's a futurist, feminine leadership coach, and has in her quiver many other titles which she can pull and string to your bow and shoot you with just whatever you kind of want. She and husband Oliver have 3 young kids who use Denmark as a base and travel the world at times, which is really interesting. And I guess very warm welcome to you, Susanna. Very warm welcome to this interview, which I'm so glad we've got off the ground.
Yeah, thank you. It's lovely to be back and connect with you after.
I know. Well, obviously we'll connect with another interview, but that's obviously down the line. But I wanted, because people may recognize you from the previous interview that we done with Ulrika. And we have another further interview planned, but I wanted to really get to know you. I wanted people to get to know you. Go away, Fly. I wanted people to get to know you, because obviously I've done separate interviews with Ulrika. So I thought before we carried on doing another joint interview with her, I wanted people to get to know you, people to get to know a bit of your background and connect with you as a person. And I wanted to speak with you anyway. So here we are.
Might as well record it.
Yeah. I guess the first thing that I wanted to say, and you didn't actually, this is something that you mentioned, because I want to get a bit of your history and a bit of how you came from where you are until like the person that you are now. Because reading your bio and reading a bit about you, you have held many interesting jobs in many countries, and I'm kind of trying to understand how you've went from that to the person that you are, doing all of these amazing creative things and providing so much service in the world. And I'm kind of wondering, at what point did that kick off for you? Because I know that you've mentioned elsewhere in one of the books that you co-authored, was, like a lot of people, you felt that you never belonged here. You felt like you were an outsider. It was only then when you kind of woke up and found out that you were a starseed. And I'm kind of wondering, was that the trigger for you to go down this path of spirituality, all of these amazing kind of wonderful things that you did, or was that much earlier? And just for anyone who doesn't know, you were a professor at nutrition and health in Denmark. You were a hotel manager in Costa Rica, an actress in New York, a heart IQ coach, a high performance and art of feminine presence teacher, and also quite aptly, you're a superhero. So I'm kind of wondering, for this kind of very long question, where did all that kick off? You know, was that just a part of your journey that you were building up into, or was there a definite shift away from the kind of semi-normal jobs that you've held?
Well, the thing is that I think that I was awake from the beginning, like, and so even my first memory I had, I remember I was like maybe 3, 4, 5, something like that, and there was this sense of being an outsider looking and trying to figure out the game the kids had. So I and then I tried to mimic, because it felt so alien to me, to even what the games they were playing. And so I always strive to try to fit in and change myself to fit in. And that's why it's just like, I was always exploring, where is my place on this planet. And I think that has been the thing that has driven me to explore all these different paths, and have all these a gazillion different jobs, and it's just like, but where is my place? And it's more based on actually the suffering of being here that have led me through this path, than something that is just like, ooh, I'm just going to explore. No. It was just like, I was so messed up and felt so off, like so alien, basically. And that is what kept me searching and searching and searching, like went to university for 8 years and 2 master degrees, and started to like being an actress, being like traveling. It's like, who am I? Where am I? Like, why am I here?
That's why I said semi-normal jobs, because your resume is quite unusual.
Yeah. Yep. I've tried everything and anything to just fit in and be normal. And I never could. And it came to a point, I think, that over the years, I've always, I went to my first psychic when I was 12 or something. So like, it's been but I always felt like there's 2 different worlds. So I grew up where, trying to fit in the normal, looking at being the chameleon of it's like, okay, this is how they play the game, and I'm going to try to mimic and do that. And then the other world I had within, where, I just felt good about myself, and, like I could feel how much power I had, and, but then I thought that was like my ego. So I got everything reversed. Then what I, thinking that, well, oh, I'm full of myself, and, I'm, that. And, but because I didn't want to play normal, and, I could see all these things, and, I would see stuff with people, and, making that as like, yeah, so basically just got everything upside down and reversed. It's like it felt like I was living in Stranger Things, like where, the underworld, and then I was in the real world, but I got it all reversed. So that I think that's been coming, and it just escalated over the years and ended up in a super deep depression. But the only thing that held me here to not take any action and leaving the planet was that I had a daughter. Even, like my husband, love him dearly. We've been together for 21 years. But, it's like he can take care of himself, but I didn't want to do that for my daughter. So
Yeah.
that was in 2006 or 7 or something like that. And then that was like the rock bottom. And then it's just like that journey of finding who I am and starting to get things right, reverse things, and realize, hey, I got it all wrong. And it is more these superpowers I have, the things I see and experience and things I can manifest. And it's like, that's my true self. And then the other thing is just programs that runs the show. And I'm not meant to fit in. I'm not here to fit in. I'm here to help people to realize who they really are and have their power within. And I think that's one of my superpowers, is that I can see the true potential in people, and I see the programs that holds them back. So it's almost just like, and then people freak out because they think, and then like, oh, you see all these things, you see all my bad sides, but I don't see it as those are our programs. But I see the true you, and I see your true potential, and I see what holds you back. So it's not that I judge people's programs, because it's not who they are. And that's, I think, is when I start to practice that with myself, then it's just like somehow I could follow my own journey and path and really find and explore from a new level. I didn't have to search. It was more allowing life to come to me than trying to, going out and try to find where I was out in the world.
Yeah, really interesting listening to your story, because I'm just trying to understand where have come along, where mine's obviously very much different. I never really had that sense, and I'm kind of wondering, is it unique? Is it to do with the culture? Is it like a Denmark? How different is that culture from Ireland? How different is that from America? But I kind of a bit like you, all kind of my life, just like I always kind of felt like, when you find out that things aren't real, it was kind of like, well, I'm not in Oz, I'm Dorothy in Kansas, and there's no light in the world. Everything's just in monochrome. And always kind of felt like, is that it? Is that all there is? Because I just seem to be missing something. And if that's all there is, then this is just boring. This is just bland. And, I buried myself very, very deeply, same as you. Terrible problems, trying to fit in, and just kind of realizing I'm not like other people. And people would have said to me, "You're not quite like," you know, um, when you do, uh, when I kind of experimented in drugs, it would have affected me differently from other people. Or just needing a lot of time to kind of be off my own to try and understand, who am I? What am I kind of doing here? But it wasn't until many, many years later that, I kind of came out of that shell. I got that reawakening again. But looking back over my own life, I realized it's always all been there. That calling, that seeking, that desire to know, not being able to stay committed to one job or one hobby or one activity. It suited you for a while, or suited me for a while, but after a while, the novelty wore off, and you're kind of just always trying to find out, what is it? There has to be something else. Like, I remember my early school years of always thinking, like, before I knew any of this stuff, like, I feel that I'm meant to do something in the world. I feel like I have a purpose or something. But then at the same time, as you say, your ego takes over. Like, who do you think you are? You're nobody. You're just some guy, random kid from Ireland. You're not some sort of Hollywood celebrity or anything like that. So quite quickly, you shut down those things. But I guess for me, there was always that small part that I kept locked, hidden up, where I would imagine and fantasize about these things. But it was only obviously much, much later that I kind of reawakened, or that reawakening happened to me. And I very much like you discovered my starseed stroke wanderer stroke, whatever you want to call that, identity. And it was, even after my awakening process, that was what really made me go, now I understand why I am. All of these weirdness, these quirks, these eccentricities, these programs and stuff that have been assailing me and have never made sense. So it was just really, really interesting. But I think that when you do kind of discover that, or uncover parts of yourself, I guess, because I think that this is a lifelong process of discovering who you are, it becomes a natural desire to want to help other people and reawaken them.
Well, when you go from that deep suffering and that to find must be something meaningful, can't be the all shit, right? So it kind of becomes part of your mission here, to help people get out of that suffering as well, because you know how painful it is. And when you look around and see all people who have so much pain in, either emotionally, physically, or spiritually, whatever, all of it, and you sit and say, hey, I know exactly how you feel, because I've been through it, and I also know what I did to get through it to the other side. I want to hand on that key to anyone who wants to listen. And that is then the other interesting part, because then a lot of people they're not ready. They don't want to take the responsibility, because that's what it ends up with. You have to take responsibility for your own life and your own shit. You can't blame anyone else for how you feel or what you do, or, it's all you. And that's just like, a lot of people are not ready to take that responsibility, also because we're programmed to be very passive and victimized, and like, oh, it's my father's fault because or the society's fault, or deep state's fault.
Yeah That I'm this junkie, crack addict, prostitute, male gigolo, whatever you want to call it. Yeah. But you're right. Ultimately, we do have to take responsibility for ourselves and really look at ourselves. And I think you're absolutely right. A lot of people aren't ready for that. They're not ready to do that deep dive, because it's the hardest work that you will ever do. Looking at yourself, examining yourself, bringing up those shadow aspects of yourself, and acknowledging that are there, and accepting that. And the way that we currently function in this world, although obviously things are changing, is that we're not taught to be open and honest. We're not taught to express our feelings, express our emotions. We're a very judgmental, moralistic society, certainly in the West. And we expect people to, even though it's this whole big sham that we're living under, we judge people. We judge our people that we put into power, politicians and celebrities, and anyone who steps out of line from that moral quandary that we've created in our society is named and shamed, and they have to grovel and apologize within an inch of their life. And the way I always kind of look at it, and I'm sure you'll agree, is that you'll see generally two people having a conversation about this, and they'll say, oh, did you hear about that person? The thing that they done, or what was found out about them. And they'll have a conversation, but in each person's mind, they're sitting going, well, if that person kind of knew my shadow aspects, and the same person at the same time is saying it, and if that was stripped away from people, if we could truly look into each other, it would be, oh my God, I never realized that you had these aspects of yourself. But the other person would obviously look at that and say the same thing, and then there would be this understanding, hey, we're all the same. We're all pretty fucked up at the end of the day.
Yeah.
So everyone is
And
exactly the same.
and it's just programs. It's not even who we really are, because the one who we really are
Yeah.
is never changing. It's like that source, that's whatever you want to call it, but that's permanent. It's always there.
Mm,
The only thing that never changes is that pure essence. Then everything that changes, our thoughts, our emotions, that is something we have. We have a body that changes too. So we have a body, we have emotions, we have thoughts, but it's not who we are. And the thing is, we identify with all these aspects of ourselves instead of seeing, oh, I have these thoughts. But the moment you identify with, that's where the ego says, oh, I don't want to look at it because it's painful. I don't, it, but when you see it's something that you have, and everybody has it because it's part of the collective consciousness field, you just tap into it. It's just like a radio station, just like, ooh, here they play this song of these type of thoughts. You can as easily tap in, just shift the channel, go into where it's much more pleasant music and thoughts, but people don't even realize how easy it can be, and it's because we believe we are all these things. So I don't want people to see all these awful sides of me. But when we start, and I wrote a book about this, it's called Goodness, Grace, and Great Thoughts on Fire, and how to embrace the 7 billion shades of you. And I share a lot of these aspects of my journey, of how I, looking at myself, it's like, oh, wait a minute, what is that thought really about? How am I identifying with, and why do I reject that side of me? And when I started to embrace those side of me, I started to become whole, because I didn't
yeah.
judge them. I said, oh, it's just something I have, it's part of this. So instead of trying to hide, I could say, well, there's this little bit of me, or this side of me, who thinks that, but there's also this side that thinks this. So it doesn't
Yeah.
have to be either or, it's always both and.
Yeah. So well said. It's just finding a way to bring that awareness globally, I think, is the challenge, isn't it? Find a way to bring this understanding of and do away with this moralistic kind of society, which is probably perpetuated by our religions and stuff, and this need to be perfect and all of this sort of stuff. So
Mhm.
I think that's a challenge for uh, light workers and star seeds and wonders, is to first get to know yourself. I love that maximum. I heavily into the law of one, but I love that maximum that they give as one of our lessons, which is know the self, accept the self, and then become the creator. So I think that's a challenge for us, certainly, is
Mhm.
when we discover more of our identity, is understanding who we are, all of these different aspects, accepting,
Mhm.
as you say, and from them we can feel more in unity with ourselves. And
Mhm.
so I think that's what we kind of need to do, and try
Mhm.
and bring these teachings and this philosophy, as you obviously have already done with your book.
Mhm.
But I kind of want to move on to this stuff that you do, because like that's quite a resume. You create global tailored boot camps. You have workshops, retreats, events. You're a mentor. You guide and teach. You've just a ton of stuff, and I kind of want to know a bit more about that. If that's thing, global
Yeah.
tailored boot camp, it sounds very corporate.
Mhm. Yeah, it's not, but but it is very holistic. So, to like working with, let's say you have a group of people who have certain challenges, and then, I look at where are you, where you want to go, and then we tailor and find exactly what you guys need to do the transformation and shifts into. So, even if you say, hey, I want to, you know what we have in common here, we want to start to make 100,000 a month type of thing. Well, then we have to look at from all different aspects. I also have this developed this let's say it's like an educational platform. I call it flow education, and it basically you work with 13 different perspectives. So let's say if you have, you can't attract money into your life, if you then start to look at it from like, where do you have blocks in your body, what are your emotional blocks and traumas that related to that, you look at the mind stuff like your thoughts, you also look at what are the collective programs of it, like in the money programs. Money is based on debt, so no wonder we reject it, because basically, as spiritual beings, we're all about the abundance. And why would we attract something that is based on the more money you have, you actually, the more in depth you are. So it's just like, again, the reverse. But when we can start to see it, we can neutralize the energy of the money and then use it for something better. So it's like, again, it's all about changing the energies of things. So you can work with it from 13 different perspectives. And that is like, also when you start to see it, things from all these different perspectives, it's almost like your body's like, it starts to like, oh shit, no wonder this is what's going on. But it also makes go into that relaxation where you can start to create and get into the creativity and ideas of it, because it transmutes the blockages that stands in the way. So that's something we've done over many years. At the moment, it's a bit of a hold with all of that, because, well, we kind of integrate everything always, but I never get stuck in one thing. That's why I also call myself a life designer, because people, they want you to be put in a box. Oh, I'm a health coach, or I'm a, yes, I used to teach at nutrition and health, senior lecturer. I have a lot of that knowledge, also academic, but also in practice. I have, I sit with a master degree in psychology and in education and all of that. But it's more, again, of finding, merge all these different perspectives and realities. And, instead of saying like, oh, I'm a therapist and now I'm going to focus on your emotional. No, that's where you can shift, because if you only focus on one direction. So right now we're much more into with our little magic wand, because I can see it's a shortcut to all the crap. And you can, because it works on all these different levels and perspectives, and emotional, physical, multidimensional. So when I find those like tools, I get very passionate about it, and I just want to spread it. So that's basically where we ended up. And now we give trainings and just created a new website called frequencywonders.com, where we write blogs, and we will start our podcast again. And like there's so much energy, because people need this. People need to start to step into their own leader. And I don't say ship, because I'm not going to put you out in the sea. We call it more leaderhood. We stay on the land. And that this has something to do also where we are enslaved, for those who haven't heard about that. So basically, one way they keep us entrapped and in the matrix is through, they bring us out in sea. So all the sea words, relationships, it's all based out in the sea, where we are presumed dead and drowned. So we lose. They then take custody over us. We are birthed, a birth, and in the docks, and it's just like everything. When you start to do this, it's like, oh God, it's just like another rabbit hole to go down into. but it's quite. It's also fun, and I think instead of seeing all these things as depressing. Of it's like, oh my God, how tricked we are and how hijacked everything is and deceived we are. We have to see it to be able to transform it. And that's just like, we don't need to be scared of it. And that's the key. It's just like, face your fears, just look at it. And then it's like, you did it again. You're trying to fool me here. I'm going to do this because that is like my way of doing it. That is much more fun, joyful, and that is a win-win approach. So everybody can have a good life. That's basically why I'm here.
Yeah, really interesting. And that obviously, well, you mentioned quite a lot, not just obviously the tailored boot camps, but I'm assuming that what you're talking about there as well is also what you mentioned about reactivating the unique genius codes for energy mastery, helping people understand their sovereignty, that they're sovereign beings, and so that they're not giving their power away to other people, along with obviously working with life design, life perspectives, freedom, and obviously you work quite a lot with women as well on their own divine feminine leadership. Fascinating stuff. So much stuff that you do. It's great. So amazing. And then you connected with your husband Oliver. You were mentioning it back in 2001, and he's obviously very much a part of your life and very much runs these events and workshops along with you. And I know that this was part of the reason for creating your podcast, because your mission, it's obviously called the Impossible Show, isn't that right?
Live the impossible.
Live the Impossible Show, sorry, yep. And your mission that you said in that is to make or co-create a new conscious reality, making the impossible possible. What exactly does that mean, making the impossible possible? Does that mean anything that's impossible possible? Or is there...
Yeah.
Okay.
Well, we live in a reality or a matrix where we are taught that what we can do and not do. But when you start to look at things from a multi-dimensional perspective, we are the creators of our realities. So when you go beyond time and space and start to see from the quantum field, everything is a hologram. Everything is created out of energy, everything. And I've seen images of where we build worlds. We are the one creating worlds. And if we have our own little hologram that is very unique for our own perception. When we start to realize that we create our own reality and how we perceive the world, we take our power back, and then we can also start to choose. We cannot choose until we are aware that what we're doing. So, and where we are not choosing, because we are not conscious. So when you start to take conscious choices of what reality, when someone says to me, like for the last many years, we have traveled the world with our kids, took them out of school, and creating our blogging, doing workshops, doing online stuff, whatever we are into at the moment, because that changes because we go with the flow. It's like where the energy goes. People then say, but that's impossible. And I'm like, well, we're doing it. So a lot of that's just like how the title came up, is because people keep on telling us that's impossible. You can't do that. I wouldn't be able to do that because I need to make money. And I'm like, what do you think? It's like, I make money too. But I create how I make money from my passions and my interests. I don't need to work 9 to 5, where I haven't been able to, because it's like my body wouldn't be able to deal with it. So it's interesting that's how basically started to, when we start to take the power back from what people tell us what we can and cannot do. And one way I've done it, and that I also write about in the Goodness, Grace, and Great Thoughts on Fire book, is where if I feel something is not, I say to myself, oh, I can't fly. Then I'm like, but I live in a world where I create everything in infinite possibilities. And I just need to tap into reality where I can. So then it's like, ooh, that's interesting. Okay. And then it's like, oh, I might not fly now, but I know I will. And actually I have thoughts that flies. I fly in my dreams. So, and I fly in an airplane. Oh, I actually can fly. It's not the definition that we often have, but then when you start to see it, it's like I actually do fly in certain perspectives. All of a sudden, you could feel like, ooh, all of a sudden it's possible. So it goes from, no, it's impossible, you can't fly, to actually you can, because you do it all the time. And not as a bird, because you don't have the wings, but you also seen all these images where people, got the wings on, or angels fly. People say that we are angels here. So maybe, just explore and play and be curious. And then, so basically what I'm saying is, every time I have a thought that I cannot do it, then I know it's not true, because I know that I live with a reality of infinite possibilities. So it's basically to shift that belief and build a bridge over to where it becomes possible. And I'm like, huh. So I'm like, I will fly properly one time, like, I do it in these ways, and I'm going to explore more of that.
That's a really interesting, it's really interesting way of looking at things. It's about changing people's perceptions of to be able to fly like a bird, but understanding, well, you already have some of these things available to you. And as you turn around and say, it's like creating this bridge from your definition of what is currently possible to, or the other side of the water, to what you're saying is impossible. And it's about creating these steps and understanding that we already have the tools to bridge to get there. And it might not be possible today, but who knows? With advances and people thinking about advances in technology and biology and stuff like that, people who have that liberated way of thinking, such as yourself, it may actually be possible in some way to, have some sort of biological appendage so we can fly. And as you mentioned, like when you think about it, there are so many different ways. Hand gliders, we can fly. Base jumpers, they fly for a second, well, they kind of drop, but or those kind of water propelled machines that shoot you out of the water for a second or two, or any number of reasons, or any number of ways in which you can say to yourself, I can fly. I may not be able to fly unaided without the aid of some mechanical or contraption or some sort of material, but I can fly. And so that's a really, really interesting way of looking at things. And more people should obviously know about that and should think that way, especially our entrepreneurs and scientists and stuff like that, instead of being conformed into this rigid three-dimensional way of, well, physically, according to, modern physics, we can't do that. Instead, liberate your thinking from that. Brilliant. Fantastic.
Because also
and
when
also
you start...
No, go ahead.
I was going to say that, but when you start to also look at how, explore people with superpowers, like there are these monks who basically they generate so much chi that they can, it's just like electricity. So you can't, they have to use a leaf to touch one, because it's like, it just boosts up your system. They can, they regenerate it, like you get their chi going, or life force going, by licking these, like what do you call them, like fire sticks or whatever, swords and stuff, and then there are some monks, they say that they levitate when they run so fast they actually levitate. There's all these superpowers. There are people who can do that, put fire into stuff, and so why not? Just because the majority can't do it doesn't mean that we don't have the potential to develop that. This would be just because we have forgotten it.
Yes, I think that's right. There's so much that still is veiled from ourselves, from our mind and our body, and our connections between our mind, body, and spirit. As you rightly say, there are monks. There have been studies conducted on Tibetan monks where they're able to regulate their temperature of their fingers and toes. You look at Shaolin monks where they are able to, break stone or have swords pointed into them, and they are affected by it. And even if that sounds a bit impossible, what about people who walk over fire, hot coals? They're trained, and that should burn the soles of their feet. And I absolutely admire those people, because I think I would check it out when it comes to that. But that in itself shows you that there are things that are possible, right up until some of these people where you hear about someone was in danger of being crushed by a truck or a car, and they were able to shove that weight off where they shouldn't physically be able to do it. People like Wim Hof and others who are able to withstand extreme colds, and dive under icy water. I watched a guy, I think it was a British guy, who dived into the Arctic. It was a Russian sailing ship. I don't know when it was, but it was in the Antarctic, and literally they were cutting through ice, and he jumped in straight into the water, swam for a minute, and got up onto the ice floe, and they took their damn time about getting things around it. It's incredible what we can achieve, and that's only physically. Who knows?
And I can have three different examples of people. So I have three people, examples of people I know. There's you said before that I'm a superhero. And that's basically Richard Wilkins, the Wiz, in Britain. He's the Minister of Inspiration. His wife Liz, she often do this exercise when she have an arrow to her throat, and then she press, and the arrow splits in half. I've seen that done live. That's supposed to be impossible. Talking about, I have one of my friends. He was in an ice bath for an hour, and it's all about the breath. That's just like where you keep the breath, and then you're fine. He's still very much alive. And a friend's friend, he has the world championship of being under the water. He has, I think it's 25 minutes he can be underwater. He has the world record on that. So, and it's all about the breath. And we have to realize the breath is the thing that keeps us alive. So if we want to discuss other impossible things, we are programmed to believe we need water and food to survive, right? They say if you don't get water for 3 days, then you're dead. Okay, I should have died several times then, because I had dry fast, as they call it. Basically, you have 3 days without any water, food, or anything. And what it does is it dries out all the old information from your cells. You dry out and pull it out of your body, because all the memories is in the water molecules. So when we pull that out, we can get a fresh start. And I remember the first time I did it many years ago. I was at the retreat, but you want to do this like with guidance. It's called the Breatharian. So the event was called like Living on Light, and it was all about the breath, and to experience the life force of the breath. And the first night I was laying and I was writing my diary, and I was like, if I don't wake up tomorrow, it's just like, and then the irony, waking up, it's like feeling fine. I'm like, huh, okay, another illusion, check. So it's just like, I've always been one of those people who walk around with food in my bag, because I think that, if I don't get food every fourth hour, I will die. And then now it's just like, I can, I know I don't need food to survive. I can, basically I choose because I like the taste. I like to have food, but I don't need it for survival. So it's also, again, shifting the way we see things. And it's just a much more enjoyable, and it's like a conscious choice. It's like, I love to have a glass of wine, or drink water, or have chocolate or cake. I love it. Why would I give that up? But I don't need it for my survival. I don't need to eat certain things. And that's, again, making the impossible possible, because I tried it in my own body. I know it's possible.
And that's an experience and a story that you share in more detail in the book that you co-authored with Ulrika Karlsson, Holy Fuck and Sacred Water. Fascinating. And I guess I wanted to say to you is that you're obviously you've tried to share some of these teachings as well by making them free. I downloaded, I haven't read it yet, but it looks really interesting. The Quantum Clarity Workbook. And that's all about describing all of the different types of intelligences: the body intelligence, emotional intelligence, heart intelligence, divine intelligence, nature intelligence. Kind of wondered, could you talk a little bit about that? It's completely free for anyone who goes to Susanna's website.
Yeah. Well, that is coming back to what I talked about before with what we call the life perspectives, to see it. I actually altered these into, so now they are 13. I can't remember how many is in that book. I think it's 11. But I changed them a bit around to make it more, because, I don't claim I have the truth. I always evolve and, see new things, and I just try to tweak and, shift and change, so it makes it easiest packaged, because everything is all connected anyway, right? So it's just to make it look from these different perspectives, and when you start to see it, then it just opens up more space within you and feel more, it's like, so that's basically what those are, to create that clarity of looking from things from different perspectives, and especially if there's something where you struggle, it's just like, I can't even think of anything, why would that be related to this? That's when you start to do a little research, or to open up to that, because it's always there. You just need to find it, and that then opens up something new. So it always comes back to stay open and curious, instead of saying something is right or wrong. Right and wrong doesn't exist. Everything just is. We are the one perceiving things as right or wrong. So if it doesn't feel good, why would you hold on to a belief like that? It's like, you are the only one suffering for it. So again, you take responsibility, and it's like, how can I perceive this so it actually makes me more feel better about this? Then you're not a victim. And that is also brings it into that whole unfuckwithable thing that I'm doing with Ulis. It's like to really become unfuckwithable. Like, I don't have any secrets. Everything I write about is just like, people can't get to me because I don't have any secrets. That's another thing we believe, that it's like we need to hold our, the private, and we don't want people to see all of us. But the more I share with all my fucked up programs, I also create the space where everybody else can be allowed to have their programs, because it has nothing to do with who you are. It's just programs we have.
Yeah, I know you mentioned that you'd change some aspects of that, because obviously as we develop as people and our knowledge increases, we can revisit our stuff and go, well, I have a bit more knowledge to add to that. But with that in mind, and with some of the books that you've kind of co-authored, we obviously talked about that amazing one, Goodness, Grace, and Great Thoughts on Fire, How to Embrace 7 Billion Shades in You. But you also co-authored another one back in 2013, which was No Mistakes, How You Can Change Adversity into Abundance. Time to Rise, which is tales of authors who overcame challenges and traumas. From Money with Love, we were talking about that. Activate Your Prosperity Consciousness. That was actually written with your husband, Oliver. Is that correct?
No, it was with like I was the editor of it, and I collected all these love letters. Often, again, I always do things the reversed than a lot of other people and spiritual teachers. So a lot of people write love letters to money. That's just like a common exercise in the spiritual community. But I reversed it and had love letters from money to yourself. So what is money telling you? Why is it or isn't it coming into your life? What is, and that just helps people to see where their blocks are and resistance for money to come into your life is. So that was, I think, I can't remember, it was 30 or 40 different people who wrote a love letter from money to themselves.
Yeah, I guess what I was trying to think before I got that information wrong was that although our own perspectives and knowledge accumulates over time, would you still agree that it's important not to go back and change? Because I look at some of the stuff that I done, where I started off my journey, my podcast and sharing information, and I'm obviously a lot more different person I am now, and the tendency is to kind of go back and go, well, I'm not really believing in that, or it's not that I don't really believe, it's my knowledge has expanded, I can add more to it. But would you say that it's important to keep things as simple as possible? Because although we're kind of somewhere here on our journey, people are only starting off in this journey, and we need to keep things as simple as possible for people. So for me anyway, as I said, the tendency is potentially not to share or make some sort of older information available today. But I think we need to understand is that there are people waking up all the time, and they need to a foothold into this. They don't need to be bombarded with the Susanna of 2023. They maybe need the very kind of I don't want to say basic, but the do you know what I'm trying to say? The kind of foothold into it.
Exactly. And I remember my very first book I wrote, it's never been published because of that particular reason. It's never been. No.
All right. Okay.
It's never been out. But I called the title was Perfect Just As You Are. I have published a few chapters from it, but I never published the whole book because I thought when I've worked with it for years, and then I came to a point it's like, oh, but I don't even believe that anymore. So and then I have come to, it's like when I had that crossing of that very first chapter I got published was the No Mistake. It was published in the States, and it was actually I was in like a competition, so they selected a few chapters to be part of that book, where I wrote about a miscarriage I had, and the heartache is the greatest gift is my chapter in that book. I can't remove that now, so it's just like kind of out of my control. And I'm glad because of that particular reason, because it's good that's why I leave that because the basics is still true. It's just that I've started to see it in a more advanced way, or new angles to it. And as you say, Holy Fucking Sacred Water is not a beginner's book. That's is a cutting edge type of information, and so many things that most people never even thought of. So it's not maybe a beginner's book, because we talk about chakras, and we talk about all these things, and if you don't know what that is, it's like we don't sit and describe from, because we speak to those who already been on this journey for a long time and want to take it to the next level. Because a lot of people, what I've noticed is that they kind of want to reach out to everyone. So instead of actually honor who they are and where they are at the moment, they try to change to please what other people think and want. And I did that for many, many years as well. And I came to a point, this is like, I will never be good enough. There will always be people who doesn't, I have to do this for me. This is my voice. This is how, and those who resonates with that will come. So it also, and that's like that inner release of and peace that comes with when you can, this is who I am. Either you resonate with what I say, or it's you're free to go. I'm not going to force anything onto you. If I can be there and support you, fine. But it's more like that you attract people who resonates with what you are and what your frequency. Then try to change, because that's what I've done all my life. I don't want to change to please others anymore. I changed because I love to, and it's like, ooh, what's more to explore?
Yeah, you're absolutely right. We need to be true to ourselves. And I'm sure you've had like people say, "Oh, I'd like more information on this. I'd like you to do more kind of work on this." But I think you have to be honest with yourself. Well, say, well, if that happens, if that comes up, or if I'm attracted to that, or if I get the opportunity to work with that or explore that, then absolutely. But I can't just change myself because you want more of this.
No.
Have to be thing, and whatever attracts me and whatever interests me, I'm going to talk about, I'm going to publish, I'm going to offer out. But that is me being me, and I may not change the world. We're not really designed to. You're not meant to be Jesus or Buddha. But we have, as you say, people who are attracted to us, to our light, to our vibration, and that's all we really need. Is that we just need these little pockets, I guess. You're doing your thing, and Ulrika's doing hers, and I'm doing mine, and someone else is doing over there. And that's all we need, as long as we're all kind of pulling in the same direction. And if we get the opportunity to join forces, I guess, if you like, because you've obviously worked with Ulrika, you've worked with your husband, you've worked with another lady called Pam Lobb on feminine webinars and on your podcast. If we get the thing and we attract people who are kind of in our camp to maybe into their camp, or people from there kind of like, oh, I'd like to know a bit more about that, then that's all we really need to do. This will expand on its own. The more that we connect in network, I guess, instead of, well, I want to change the world, me on my own. I want to do this for everyone. You want this, I'll be like that. You want this, I'll be like that. No, just concentrate on.
But then it's the ego. That's the ego who wants to be the savior. And instead of co-create and collaborate, there is no competition, because there's only one you. But then when you start to play and have fun with other people, and we all come with our uniqueness, that's when the synergetic effect and amplified field is created. If we all try to be the same, it's just like quite boring, to be honest. Like, we all would be bored. That's how we complement each other. There's no competition.
Yeah, absolutely right. And I did notice, but it's not published in English, that you have one of your very earliest books, which was Flow Food, Organic Food on a Budget.
Mhm.
And I'm assuming that that was influenced and came about because of your nutrition and health professor.
Yeah, it was actually, when having small kids, working full time as at nutrition and health, and come home and be stressed and trying to figure out like food, and it became like the cookbook that I needed for myself. And then I was approached by this publishing company who needed a cookbook for students. So then that's how Flow Food came about, and I collaborated with some students. I had some interns, and we co-created this Flow Food book, where so it's just like recipes for a week, but with different colors, varieties. So it's like a soup day and a pasta day, and so just to create the variation over a week, with it also grocery shopping lists and all of that. It's only published in Danish so far. I have an English version, but it's quite interesting because it's the cookbook is still the one I use at home. Because I never follow a recipe. The few times I do that, it doesn't taste good. So I need to have the flexibility also in the cookbook. That's just like, you take a couple of potatoes and a couple of carrots, and or if you don't have that, you can use this instead. It's that type of a very open and flexible type of cookbook. So that's just like, basically, often when I can't find anything, I just create it myself. It's like, I need something like that, and then I'm like, oh, okay, so I just do it.
I was actually going to say to you before you mentioned that,
Yeah.
I was actually going to say that to you before you told me about that. If your book was published in English, would I get this? Here's what to do. Throw in a few of this. Throw in a few of that, and it'll taste great. And you actually did confirm that. Wow, what an
Yeah.
interesting book! I would actually like to read that if you ever do get it published in English.
Yeah.
So tell us then about, which is another interesting thing that I find about you. We mentioned earlier that you, your husband Oliver, and three kids, you homeschool them, or you don't even homeschool them, you world school them. Um, and you have a website called Conscious Family Travel, I think, which is
Yeah.
about
Travel
the
family, conscious travel
interaction
family.
and
Yeah.
stories, Conscious Travel Family,
Yeah.
which is shares some interesting stories about the characters and the people that you've met. The one up there that I remember about Vietnam, the guy bringing you around all kind of parts in Vietnam was interesting.
Mm-hmm.
And you've labeled this as a kind of meaningful, holistic, and passionate life sharing stories of people and events along the way, which sounds really interesting. Okay, so this family kind of goes and explores different parts of the world, and they almost travel blog about it, but it's more than that, because you're visiting these existing sacred sites. And I know that you've related this story as well in the Holy Fuck book, but I didn't know that it was something that you'd mentioned outside of it. So it kind of gives me a little bit of leeway to talk about that, because I'm just a bit conscious that we have another kind of interview where we're going to mention some of this. But you also talk about reactivating the stargates and raising the frequencies of the planet. And it must be an interesting life, to say the least, to have your kids share that worldview instead of this rigid, dogmatic worldview that is kind of imposed by our educational systems. I kind of wonder how that all kind of works, how your kids take
Yeah.
it.
Yeah. Again, I think it came about like that. It all started actually when back in maybe 2010, 11, maybe, when I was working as a senior professor at nutrition and health. And then there was this, like, I actually loved my job. I loved to teach, and, but I could also feel that I was trapped in what I could teach and what I could say and not. And, like, it was quite, limited in that sense. And one night, my husband and I was laying in bed and talking. And then all of a sudden, I just, I get these messages from guides or whatever whatever it is. But it's like, okay, you need to quit your job. And I was like, oh, but I'm just in for a race. I was, going to start to make much more money because of, I've been teaching for a certain amount of years and stuff. And I told my husband, and he goes, oh, congratulations. So what are we going to do then? and that is also like how we started to explore, like what can we do? Like in Denmark, there's you don't have to go to school. You just have to educate. So we ended up. And basically,
right, okay, it's just an interesting fact.
And then taking the kids out of school, and it was a lot, they were having a lot of issues, and because they are starseed, they're sensitive. So for them to be with a large group, it just stresses their system. So they were not very happy. My youngest hadn't even started school, but the other two. And so we went to Costa Rica. That's just like another long story, but after we got back from Costa Rica, after living there for a couple of years, and where we had the hotel, we didn't want to give up traveling. That's just like been one of the passions my husband and I had. So it's just like, so how can we get that part of our life, and how can we get money actually traveling? And so we started to research, and it's like, how do people make money when they travel, like traveling nomads? And for us, it was important that our kids experience the world instead of reading about it. And so when we go somewhere, we often go for a few months, and it's always guided. That it comes all these inputs. It's like, it could be, like when you see the synchronicity and things, it's like, and all of a sudden you just know, oh shit, we need to go there. Often it's not planned. We don't know how we financially are going to make it happen, and then something just happened, and then money comes, and then the opportunity there comes, and because we already decided we're going to do it, so we take the action. The only times it doesn't work is when we focus on, we're going to do this, and then we're going to do that. So we can do this. If we focus on the how, it doesn't work. We have to focus on where we're going to do, what we're going to experience, and why we're doing this. And that's, traveling in Asia for 3 months, Vietnam, Cambodia, Thailand, and explore the culture, the history, also the hidden history, going to these sites to activate both ourselves, these codes, genius codes, and also activate the earth itself. So basically get the energies going and flowing in the different grids. So Bahamas was one of that was the first place we went. And basically we were so guided. We collaborated with a shaman in Costa Rica, and he would get pieces and keys and activate them within me, and then I would get other keys and things, and so we were all, it's just like almost surreal. Everything was super surreal. Things that happened, we were it's the start. The Bahamas is part of the Bermuda Triangle, so we went to 3 different islands in the Bahamas. That was just like a triangle within the triangle. And we were 11 days on each island. And there was like very specific numbers and different places we were supposed to go to. We didn't know what, but we would, it's just like, it was all about the threes because it's Stargate 3. We would go, and it's like on the Bimini Island, which is the old Atlantean island. Old Atlantis is underneath the water there. And we would walk, and there was no cars on Bimini. There were 2 cars or something. And car number 3 comes. So we stand out in the streets. It's like, where are we going? I don't know. Then car number 3 comes. And we're like, oh, we're supposed to go this direction. And then it would be like, we were almost like, okay, we need to go this way, apparently. And we would end up the weirdest places. And then it's like, oh, okay, this is where we're supposed to be. Okay. And now what? And then we would just stand there until we would get some kind of guidance or a sign or a symbol or something that would come. And then Oliver, he's an Emerald Guardian, so he have all these guardians he puts up around me, and then I will go, okay, do whatever you need to do. I'm here, I have no clue what's happening, and then this beam of energy would just come through me. Sometimes I was just standing there shaking. I was like almost electrified, but it's not painful, but it's just like super weird. And then I was standing there, and it's like gets like twitches and all of that, and then it's like, oh, okay, now we're done. And the kids were, like, okay, can we go now? And it's so surreal. So that's how we've done for like the last, I don't know, like 10, 15 years, 10 years probably. All of a sudden it's like, oh, now you need to go to southern France. It's all about activating the codes of the Cathars and that area. And it's always in 3 different places, like triangle. And it's just weird stuff and shit that happens. There's a lot of fun. But it's just like, how do you describe the undescribable? I don't have the vocabulary to explain what happened and how do I know, and because I don't really know, I just So it's the kids, they're used to it by now, and it's interesting because we never tell them this is the way it is, and it's just like, this is our truth. You are, free to believe whatever you like. Some people believe this, some people believe that. So that's also when we travel. We often, just let's look into the religion. What do they actually believe? And what is the creational story? What food do they eat? To explore, because it also opens up for new perspectives and point of views up, so it's not so rigid. And this is how it is. Here we know how things should be, and those are just savages type of thing. And and they are the most embracing, grounded kids, and they have no judgments against any color or type or culture, whatever. It's just like it's again that curiosity that comes through, and we have a lot of fun. And it's not that we never teach per se. It's more that we talk about things, we integrate it into the everyday life. So we don't use any books, we don't but we use more the conversations, and it's like, how do you see it? Well, what do you know about this? And we listen to each other's different point of views, and but I see it this way. I never thought about that. oh, I see it like this, and and I've heard this person, they believe this, and again, so then there is no right and wrongs. Things just are, and it's
Yeah.
perspectives we
It
have.
sounds like yeah, it sounds like most normal people's idea of an absolute nightmare. Let's just go to some random country which have no idea about the culture, have no idea about the going to be welcomed. Let's just stand around and okay, let's walk in some random direction without thinking about our personal safety whatsoever. No idea how we're going to fund this trip, but hey, and then we're just going to stand there and wait for something to and for your kids to be kind of yeah, okay, mom's. But and to me, it sounds really refreshing, so enlivening, and I think that the experiences, you know, obviously they've become so open, non-judgment. Seeing people as they kind of are, and having this respect for culture, all this stuff, like not having any kind of dogma and saying this is the way it can be done. Let's exchange ideas, but how does it feel for you? And getting them to be kind of in touch with not words, which are forever secondary, to the feeling of it. I just, it must be very exciting for you and your husband to imagine what your kids' futures will be like. Oh, I don't know why we're dropping. It's seem to be you're laying down the foundations for something really special, and that your kids, they continue along this path, are going to build upon what you and Oliver have created, this new way of life, and take this to potentially things that you will have never thought of, in our very much
Mhm.
changed world. Yeah,
Mm.
it's absolutely fascinating
Yeah,
stuff. Fascinating stuff.
I my daughter, she turns 19 now, and a year ago, like the week after she turned 18, she moved to Riga, in Latvia for 6 months. So she doesn't have, a graduate. She didn't graduate from school or anything. She got a job, and as customer service and stuff, and we were playing. So I was saying, okay, so what is your dream, scenario would live it, how to the apartment you were going to live in. And she was like, okay, I want to live in an old town, I want to have a roomie, but not too many, but like share it with one, and this and that, and close to the park and all of that. And a couple of weeks later, the girl did it, but so she got that old town apartment. It was super nice with this uh student, like there's a lot of doctoral physician studies students in Riga, and she loved it. She didn't like the job, so she came back home now, but like that, it was hard for the mommy to have her daughter move away, but that she even did it, and that she got the job, and the way she got the job was, it's like, she didn't even plan to get a job. It was just like we were just going to write her CV and see if we, so she get the practice, and then she actually got the job, and she's like, shit, what do I do? And she loves to travel, and so that's, but it's the confidence. I think I think she doesn't doubt herself because she hasn't had that program through the
Conditioning, yeah,
schools and
programming.
conditioning. Yeah. And I
Yeah.
think that, and we are very honest, like I'm the first one to admit I screwed up. I'm not perfect, like that was my trigger. Sorry, I shouldn't have said that or did that. And that also again makes them, it's okay to do mistakes and yell, or it's okay. We all screw up. We all do the best with what we got. And sometimes when we are overwhelmed, it's very difficult to just like be all zen. But the moment we start to project it onto others, that's not okay. I need to take responsibility. So that's also one of the things that one of the greatest gifts of my kids, because of they are so sensitive. So especially my middle son, he was acting out a lot, and we realized it was because he takes everything in and he transmutes. So he's a transformer. And so when people don't express, he will do it for them. So they, then they would, say it's something wrong with him, but he was expressing what they wouldn't take ownership of. So it's been a great lesson for us as a family as well to take responsibility for our things. So when the kids are fighting, it's just like to have them all just take responsibility, say sorry for my part of this conflict, not for all of it, but for my part, because we all have a part, otherwise it wouldn't be a conflict. So to say, hey kids, I have a crappy day today. I'm in a I have PMS, or like whatever. So I'm not. So if I start to get it out, project it onto you, just know, I'm sorry, and um, and that then he doesn't have to act it out. If I don't say it out loud, he will then start to project a lot, and trigger, because I haven't owned that bit yet. So
Yeah.
it's super super to take ownership of what's going on in my own system, and then claim it. And then I don't have to project to others and say it's your fault I'm feeling this way, or create a conflict, or because it's like it's your fault that I'm angry right now. No, I'm having this energy going on, and it's triggering something in me. So that there will always be someone who will do that for you, because you don't own it and you don't claim it.
Yeah, absolutely fascinating. I mean, we hear talk of the ideal family being the nuclear family, and I think that model is very much outdated. And I think that the model should be based upon the way that you and your husband have raised your family. This very liberating, open-minded approach that I think serves our children for all the different ways that you mentioned there. Saying that you're not perfect, by exposing them to cultures and different worldviews, and not imposing any kind of rigid dogma on it. I think that's definitely the model that we should be looking at if we really want to, grow and change as people, and really bring about this great global examples like yours and ours, and how you've raised your family. So inspirational just listening to that. So just before we go then, Susanna, I know that you're working on a few things, and as if you're not busy enough, but I know you have kind of a new website in the work, right?
Mhm.
And I know that you have created a new joint website with Ulrika. Have you? Could you tell us about that new website and anything else maybe that you're kind of working on?
Yeah, the Ulrika and I are working on a second edition of Holy Fucking Sacred Water. So
Mm.
it's like a total rewrite of everything,
Oh
and
no.
adding,
Yes.
and so we're quite excited about that, because again, a lot of change since we wrote that a couple
Yeah.
of years ago, or 3 years ago. God, time flies. But um so that's what we are working on at the moment. And then so basically these are the two major projects I'm working on at the moment. So the conscious travel family, we it's not up. I'm not producing new materials. It's like the old is there. Same with Holy Land. The Live the Impossible show will come up very soon again. But the frequencywonders.com, that is all about these magic wands that I discovered, where basically I got my life back. And we've been to these health fairs the last month. The fact that I could stand on a health fair for 3 days, there's a lot of Wi-Fi and things. I am EMF sensitive. I've diagnosed with fibromyalgia. I've had issues with my eyes. So it's just like a lot of my projects had to be shut down 2 years ago now because I couldn't work on the screen. I couldn't do anything. I had a bleeding. They thought I was going blind. And got into menopause. It's just like I've been a mess the last couple of years physically. And in October, I was introduced to this magic wand, as they call it. We call it.
Yeah.
Oh, we also call it a medbed dildo, for those who are into that.
Yeah.
So, it's basically it's terahertz, quantum frequencies, and crystal device. So it penetrates and activates your cells, your stem cells, and eliminate the cells that doesn't work. And within weeks, like in 2 days, my fibromyalgia pains were gone. It's almost like the EMF doesn't affect me as much anymore. I still wouldn't start to, use a Wi-Fi in my house and things, but because I know how it affects. But it's almost like, the scene in Harry Potter where the Dementors come and suck the life force out of his godfather, and then the white stag comes and he creates this white field with his wand, and the Dementors, they can't get in because it's pure love. That is the quantum field this wand creates, and your cells awakens and start to regenerate. So I feel younger and more alive than I have in my whole life. And through it for 6 days, it was like 3 days in Sweden and 3 days in Copenhagen, Denmark, at this fair in heels, been full on, and just like a Duracell rabbit, it just kept on going. I have so much energy. It's been just, I realize how much also my whole life have been quite limited into, I had to listen to my body to not get sick. Okay, if I'm doing the fair for 2 hours now, then I need to take a break for 3 days. Otherwise, I will be sick for months. So it's like, that's how I have navigated the last 10 years of my life. And to see how I can start to be free on a totally new level with everything I do. So that's like where all my focus goes now, because people need to hear about this. People need to get, it's like, this is the lifesaver we've been waiting for. Physical, emotional, spiritual, mental, all of the things is cleared out. Trauma that sits in your cells, you can use it for anything and everyone on different levels. So it's like vaccine injured people. We've seen, people get up and walk. It's like we had a lady came with a walker, just 5 minutes with a wand, and she left and she forgot to bring her walker. So it's amazing. You can see it within minutes. So that's just like what we now are writing blogs. We are sharing and bringing this out to the world, because this is like the the hope. This is like where we have the deep state and the all of these negative dementors sucking out life force, and now we have our type of peaceful weapon where that gives us the life force back and takes the power back. And so that's basically where most of my focus goes, and it goes so well hand in hand with holy fucking sacred water, because it's almost like a manifestation of everything we wrote. How to clear our water, how to ignite the sparks, the holy flux. That's what the one does. So it's like the perfect holy fuck in itself.
Yeah, I have someone who I'm close to. I mentioned to her too because she would be kind of along the same thinking, and I do want to get one myself at some stage. But she was like, "Yeah, I've heard good things about that. Like my shaman that I know was using it, and a few people. So it's definitely growing in popularity, and there are people who know about it and who are practicing it. So I was going to say,
Yeah.
where can we find you? But you've kind of already mentioned. Your kind of main sites, but for anyone who kind of doesn't know, just things that like, well, the podcast, where can you find that, and other bits and
Yeah.
pieces?
We
Oh,
are
yeah,
redoing, yeah. So we're doing the Live the Impossible website is changing its look. So it is a bit of a mess at the moment, but the episodes is all about all major platforms like Podbean and Apple and Spotify and all of that. There's just a few episodes on Spotify that's been censored, but you know. Um, but but otherwise it's on livetheimpossible.today. frequencywonders.com is now where I put most of my energy on that. The books are all on Amazon. My
Do you want
last
anyone
name.
to? Because I know that Ulrika was kind of mentioning that. I don't know if this is something you're interested in, but someone that I know was interested in purchasing one of her books, and she had kind of said, "Well, like I can send you one personally, like a signed
Mhm.
copy, so just so that you're not kind of giving money to these super
Yes,
enormous."
absolutely. I can
So
ship.
I don't know if that's something.
Yes, you can get a signed copy of all my books. I think the only place at the moment where I have all the books gathered is at the conscioustravelfamily.com. And again, that website is also about to change so that it looks a bit crappy at the moment. So it's all of it because we changed the design, we removed a plug, which means that the whole website, it gets messed up. And yeah, so we're working on that, all the websites of those websites. But there you can find all the books. You can read about the books on Amazon, and then reach out. You can send me an email at Susanna, SUSANNA, at frequencywonders.com. And yeah, get a signed copy. Now the
Just
dog
before we
is.
go, Susanna, it's been some joy talking to you, understanding all of this stuff, and getting to know you, for me personally, better, but hopefully to get other people, to get to know you better. And obviously you'll be back again with in another kind of joint interview. And we'll, just when you said there's going to be another edition of Holy Fucking Secret Water Publics, I was like, oh no, it's taken me 3 interviews to get through the first edition. It's going to be another 3. Who knows, maybe. But look, have you what some sort of inspirational thought, quote, something that you want to say to people who are starting down along this path? Because it could be pretty intimidating for people who are kind of maybe starting off in this path, and like you have so much about you do so much, you have so many titles, and I think that could be a little bit intimidating for people going, oh my god, I could never be there, so
Yeah.
something along those lines.
Yeah, but I really want people to know that we all do our best with what we got. And there's no way we can't fuck this up. We are exactly where we're supposed to be. And it's part of the life's journey is to really explore this. And so just take care of yourself and be curious. to know yourself, and you know, you don't have to you know, compare yourself with anyone else, because there's only one you. You're perfect just as you are. And we all have our shitty programs. We all have our, you know, negative sides or whatever, but it's not who you are. So you know, love yourself and take care of yourself as you would like other people to treat you. And my mom, she used to say that, you know, like that when someone was acting weird or being mean or whatever, she always says, it's like, oh, can you imagine how much they must hurt within for them to do that? So instead of judging yourself, or, you know, acknowledge your pain. It's okay. We all have our shit. We all have been through, but it doesn't define who you are. And to play and have fun, to explore, to live the impossible.
Amazing, amazing. Susanna, thank you so much for agreeing to do this. We've got it done in the end. Well, it will be as soon as I hit end recording. Done after weeks and weeks of trying, after the hiccups that we had this morning. But I'm so glad we got it done, because you're such an inspirational figure and such so full of knowledge and trying to serve in so many ways. And I do hope that other people can see what I can see. So thank you so much for doing this.
Oh,
and I will look forward to seeing you soon.
Yes.
You're welcome.
Likewise. Thank you
care.
so much.
Bye.
You too. Bye.